everybody. I am Niels Brouwers, a globe teacher from the Netherlands, and I'm going to talk to you about my trip that I've been doing through Europe recently. I've been exploring Europe and obviously connected with Globe the Netherlands. And in my school, I have been doing a little, but only a little bit. Okay, so I am not only doing this trip alone, so this is me and my partner in The Hague, so at the beach during winter, so similar time last year. And what we are actually doing is we've been allowed to take a year off from our school. So in our labor law for schools in the Netherlands, there is a clause that can allow you to take a year off. It's unpaid leave, but it's also at the discretion of your principal, so your school's principal. So not everybody gets it, and we were lucky enough to get a year off from our principal. But the thing was that we needed to have an angle, and we are specifically looking at good examples of teaching towards sustainability, so towards a sustainable planet. All right, so this is our school. We're both teachers, so I'm a biology teacher, and my partner is a geography teacher at the International School of The Hague. It's a huge school. We've got about 2,000 students, about 1,200 secondary and about 800 primary. Here you can see the primary wing, and this is the secondary wing. And this is during COVID. We had some Canadian geese, and they're young, also on our premises. They're also there, during non-COVID times. But we're specifically looking at these inspirational examples for teaching for sustainability during this particular year. And our principal thought that was an awesome idea. So we also want to bring back those ideas to our school. All right, so my personal mission was is to also visit Globe schools and meet with the local country coordinators and teachers to draw inspiration to re-establish the Globe program in my school specifically. So my school joined already some time ago, and here are some general statistics about the Globe Netherlands. So we've been members since 1995, and we've got about 123 schools contributing since then. Quite a few also in The Hague. All right, so coming back to what I just mentioned about how I came to become interested in Globe. The school actually joined the Globe program in 2013, so my school, but it's been kind of dormant since 2017, mainly because the teachers that were driving it, only about two, they changed position and one actually left school to come back later. Since then, the Globe program has a little bit, deteriorated and nothing much happened. So in 2021, I got an email from a colleague about the phonology project, so specifically the Greening Down campaign. And together with my class, so this is my final year's class, this is during the stunt week, so they dress up every day. So they're kind of the final week before the exams. And we did a little bit of the Greening Down campaign. So we tried out the Grow app and see, how this would work. Here is another nice picture of some of my younger students during a field trip. So they dressed up as biology students. But I've been trying it out, but only since 2021. So when this happened, I already knew that we would go on a sabbatical. And the thing was that I really wanted to learn actually from my peers, so from the teachers and the schools that I visit during my trip. So this is our route so far. So we've started obviously in the Netherlands, have gone through Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and back through Sweden, took a ferry to Estonia, through Latvia, through Lithuania, Poland, and Slovakia, Hungary obviously as well. And we are now currently in Italy, and we are planning to continue our trip through Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, and then back through France to the Netherlands. So we've got a full year to do this, and we've been traveling now since July, so full school year. And we're back teaching at our school, so we're allowed back into the school in early September. That is the plan. Okay, so how do we actually travel? Well, we travel with a very small hybrid, also as sustainable as possible. We thought about using an electrical car, but the difficulties in some of the countries that we've visited of charging a car, an electrical car, were a big problem. So we've leased a small hybrid car, and we try to camp as much as possible. It's a nice little campfire. And that is the mode of travel. And obviously we're also using other accommodation. So the first stop, just briefly, was in Sweden at the start, so the first week of August. And this was an eco-home, and we helped with a little bit of the maintenance and the setting up of this house, so that's still developing. And here you see a nice example of some phonology, so greening down of poplar in this case. Then we spent quite a long time in Norway, so we arrived there in mid-August and left there at the end of September. So this is on Øster, and it's a biodynamic farm. So what we did there is obviously work on the land, and also learn from these people that run the farm. So it's 3 families that run the farm, and a lot of volunteers that you can see here at the table during the communal dinners, that learn about obviously sustainable living. So most of the food and most of the things that they produce make that these people are almost fully self-sustainable in terms of their food and income as well. They sell this in a local shop. So what did we do more in Norway? In Ireland, so this is at the coast, the fjords. We visited the biological farming secondary school. So it's a different system, obviously, in Norway. So this is a school specifically for children from 14 to 18 that want to become biological farmers. And they get to go to this specialized school. Obviously, again, as an example for how to get a sustainable world in terms of food production. We did a little bit of work also on this particular biodynamic farm in Lom, also in Norway. So it's called Okrust. It's a herbal farm, again biodynamic, and they sell these herbs and also some vegetables to the local community, also being primarily and almost self-sustainable. Another thing, this was in late October. We visited the real school, so this is quite a new school. It's a private school, and what is really nice about this is that these children are really being brought up by looking at the world as a whole, and it's mainly project-based learning that they do in this particular school. So they have a question from society, maybe from a local council, about an issue. They investigate that and present it back to the local community. And by doing this, they learn about society and also about sustainable living. But before we arrived there, we actually visited Lithuania first and then went back to Latvia. So here kind of my program really started. So in Norway, I did look at globe schools, but the place where we were, so around Hamar, and in other areas we just traveled through, there were actually no globe schools there. So the first globe school that I visited was actually in Lithuania. And there I visited Ruta, and I will tell a little bit more about that, and also Grete at her institute. Yeah, so to reiterate, what I really want to get out of this this trip and also out of these visits is to learn from the experiences that are happening in other schools, and bring this back to my school and hopefully re-establish the Globe program again, and get this going with the students. So here are a couple of stats. So in Lithuania, like probably most of you already know, you've been a member since 2002, and about 70 schools are contributing or have contributed since then to the program. So the first school that I visited was Ruta's school, and what we talked about a little bit was in terms of the promotion that she does in her school. So it's mainly word of mouth, and obviously in her classes she introduces the program to her students, but she also targets students directly, students that are actually interested in research. But there's also a poster board, and here's an example of the poster that was hanging in the school at the time about the program. And then within her classroom she's got a nice display board that also will hopefully trigger some interest from the students with the certificates and the programs that she was working on. So mainly working also on the phonology project at the moment, or that's obviously already finished. So yeah, she showed me around the ground. So around the school there's quite a few trees that could be monitored. So she was at that stage monitoring 5 trees with about 15 students that were actively participating in the program. So relatively small numbers of students actively interested in this particular program. And that's also what I came across with all the other schools that I visited. So it's not that many students that are contributing to the program, but the students that really are interested in doing research and contributing to research. So here you see Ruta with a northern red oak, Quercus rubra, and a birch here, also with me standing there. What we discussed, one of the things that we discussed was the Grow app and the monitoring of trees. I also did a little bit of work with that. And I also found that it was quite hard to do some of the things with the Grow app, specifically about the locations. The Grow app obviously uses a GPS, and the issue is to find your photo sequence back again. So my students were taking photos with their phones, so all had their own kind of photo sequence of the same tree. And it was really hard to find the right photo sequence back for those students. So Ruta solved this by just picking trees that were further apart on the school ground. So there was no issue there, and then also only one branch being used to take the photos with the Grow app. So that was one of the things that I already picked up on and will implement in my school as well, so I don't have these issues. So I already learned something good there, and in general obviously looked at how Ruta has been organized within her school. So what I also did after that visit, I visited Grete at her institute, and here you can see Thomas and Grete and their colleagues within the division of the natural and ecological education. And they showed me around their institute, and we talked about what they're actually doing in the institute in general, but specifically also about the importance of having these kind of national but also international meetings in relation to Globe, where results are being presented by you guys and your schools, and also how important it is to have students interact with each other from the different parts of the country and even internationally. If you go to the international conference, which is online this year, so maybe some of you are also going to do that. I think it's obviously mostly valuable if you're actually there personally. So sorry that I'm not there personally, because we had to move on, currently in Italy, so a little bit too far away. But the interaction, I think, between students and teachers is super important to keep this program growing and going, and get inspired by the work that's done by others, and strive to maybe do even better and more the next year in relation to this program. So after we were actually in Lithuania, we had a quick trip to Riga, where Wieneke, my partner, was doing a workshop for the International Baccalaureate. And in the meantime, I contacted the country coordinator there to also maybe set up a meeting at a school. But because of COVID regulations, this was an issue, and also not that many schools in Latvia that are contributing to the program, so there were no schools close by that I could visit. So incidentally, we had an online meeting, and the coordinator made a beautiful presentation, and I've taken some of the slides from his presentation to present to you here, to give a bit of an overview of what's happening in Latvia. So Christianus was or is working for the Children's Environmental School, which is an NGO. Here are some of the stats that they're doing. So there's it's about 27 active schools, so not as many as in Lithuania, but there's also less people in Latvia. So on balance, might be a little bit, might be similar. And here are some of the stats and a little map of that. So what I really took away from this particular meeting that I had was that there were some things organized in terms of the Globe program, but not on a kind of regular basis. So there were no yearly kind of meetings like you have now in Latvia, and also the support, so the financial support was mainly kind of spot funding, so sometimes from the local government, but most of the time from the US Embassy, actually. And because Globe is an American program, that is why they sometimes contribute to this and the activities. What I personally also thought was that maybe because it's an NGO, so it's not directly supported by the government, that there's a little bit less funding to to promote it in the country and to do a kind of a yearly meeting. So there's no real funding for that in Lithuania. So the last visit that I did just recently was in Slovenia, so on the 16th of November, so in the middle of November, so about 2 weeks ago. I met up with the country coordinators and also visited 2 schools that were doing Globe. So what is interesting about Slovenia is that they only very recently joined Globe, actually just during the break, when the pandemic, the Corona pandemic started, they joined. But even then, they already have about 37 schools that are contributing to the program, but all are very kind of new. So the country coordinator Zoran and Yasmina, they joined me on this particular visit, and we first visited a secondary school. So Alenka, she's a chemistry teacher. and she showed us around the school, and also had a couple of students show me their work and how they were collecting data. Lenka's got is about an hour from the school, so it's supported by the school to do the Globe program. But there was no kind of active promotion, so also relatively small numbers, and mainly her doing this particular program in her school. So here you can see two students collecting some data. So they were looking at the local river, taking a sample, and looking at water quality specifically. So pH, temperature, and conductivity were the measurements that they did. And they also presented this at the International Globe meeting 2 years ago, which was online at the time. So already quite active, even though she just joined 2 years ago. Then I also visited a primary school. So Katarina was the leader there of the Globe program. She's a biology teacher, mainly introduced the students that she's actually teaching in some of the electives that they have in Slovenia. So it's a little bit different. Primary school is up to 14 years in Slovenia, and then from 14 to 18, that's called secondary school. So this is primary school. These students were about 13 to 14 years, so kind of in the final year. They can select an elective there, and in that elective there's a little bit more flexibility in terms of curriculum. So she just implemented also the phenology campaign, so the greening up and greening down of trees. And here you see some students doing some of these measurements, so greening down of a birch in this case. So they only measured 2 trees on their ground, and also really just learning about specifically the Grow app. They had some issues with the Grow app in terms of making a picture of the full tree, not always using the same kind of location. So the sequence, the time sequence that you can make with this app wasn't very good. So next year she will do that better and have like a fixed position. So maybe a little marker where the students can stand and then take a picture. So all these things are pretty similar in terms of issues specifically in this phonology campaign. They were quite active, so they also had a chemistry teacher that was involved, and these students monitored every day. They were going out to this rainfall meter, looked at the volume of the rainfall of that day, and also looked at the pH of the rainfall, and then put that in the database directly. And that was another kind of contribution that they were doing to the particular program. All right, so I'm already getting to kind of the end of this presentation. This was kind of an overview where I am now. So now in Italy, I hope to visit some schools there too. But what might be nice for you is to see what are kind of the differences between the countries and also the similarities between the schools and the people that run the programs. So let's first start with the differences. So the coordination. So in Lithuania and Slovenia, it's directly governed by organizations that are governmental organizations. And Latvia and the Netherlands, both non-governmental organizations are leading this particular program. So in the Netherlands it's quite big, and obviously there's links with the government, but not direct links, and they really have to find funding to actually fund investments for these particular programs. So there's a little bit of differences there, and it seems to be that the governmental programs seem to have a little bit more kind of input and support compared to the non-governmental Globe programs. So that was interesting for me to note. So the implementation in the schools, so promotion among students, was a lot of differences between the different schools that I visited. So with Ruta, mainly in her class, that she finds students that are interested in doing science, and then introducing them to the program. Also a little bit of flyers in the school and in the newsletters, word of mouth. But others mainly doing it in their own school and in their own class, and also incorporating it in their classes, and not necessarily having a larger group of students contributing to it. Rewards for students, there were some differences there. So in the Netherlands, we can't really give a kind of grade for it. But what I found was that Ruta actually gives a grade, or kind of an additional grade for the students that are contributing to this program towards the biology grade. In Slovenia, I also heard similar. So in the secondary school, there's like 3 grades that contribute to the final grade, and one of the grades is about engagement within the classroom, and also being involved in the GLOW program contributed to that particular grade. So also some great facts. That was in the schools that I visited. In my school, that would not be possible. So my school, the GLOW program will very likely be kind of outside class mainly activity. So an extracurricular activity, and in our school we get some hours for that, to do that. So about 1 hour every week. And that was very similar to what Ruta was getting from her school, and also in the secondary school, Alenka had similar kind of support from her school to run this program. Not sure if that's enough, but you just have to see how it runs. Annual conferences, there were some differences there. So in the Netherlands, there's every year there's an annual conference, and then the winners of that conference, so they present their work in a scientific way with a poster and a kind of display and a short presentation. The winners of those conferences, they can contribute then to the international conference, get a free journey there as well if it is a physical conference. So now this year it's online, so maybe more schools are contributing this year. I need to figure this out too, because I have not really done very much yet in the GLOW program myself. But it's very good to get these insights from the different schools. And I think it's really important, like I already mentioned, that these conferences take place and that there's, students can mingle with each other. Okay, so some of the similarities. So school support, so 1 task hour seems to be, something that I've, come across with most of the schools that I visited. Mostly only really students that are, obviously interested in research. So relatively small groups of students that are actively involved in the program. So up to 15 is what I've come across so far. That's also something that I think will be similar to my school, that there will be just a small group, but we'll see what happens. Only a small number of teachers actively involved in each school, so mainly driven by 1 teacher and supported by another or maybe 2. But generally, it's not a very large kind of community of teachers that are supporting this. Mainly science teachers, obviously, but we also had an English teacher involved in Ruta's instance, for instance. So, yeah, it seems to be similar to that. In general, also, problems with the in-class implementation of the programs. So if you want to use it in class, obviously there needs to be a clear link with the curriculum, and often there's not, and that is an issue for teachers to be readily contributing to this particular program. So it seems to be that you need to always have some time outside of class to be able to actively engage with this program, and also put the data into the database those kind of things, they take time and you can't really do that in your normal classes. So that might also be something, that needs to be worked on to make very clear links with the kind of curriculum. And that is also why I did the phonology campaign in our exams, so the final year's exams. There is something about chlorophyll and also the change of colors and the pigments in leaves. And that is why I implemented this, the globe greening down in my classroom then, because I could make very clear links with my curriculum and with their curriculum in terms of what they need to know for the exams. And then being outside, you can, quiz them also on some ecology, etc. So it was a really good opportunity for me to use that that way in my classroom. And I think that's the strength of some of the programs, and to be able to use it in your classroom instead of just outside and doing these projects as an extra curricular. All right, so this brings me to the end. If you have questions, if you want to know more, feel free to email me. I hope you have a lovely time. I am going to say goodbye to you and enjoy this conference. I want to thank Greta for the opportunity to contribute to your annual meeting. And it would be lovely if you are going to visit the Netherlands sometime. Please let me know, because it would be awesome also to show you around in my school. So next year I will be back and also start implementing the Globe program, actively in my school, learning from you guys. Also to the students that are there, well done, and make sure that you keep your interest and keep contributing to the Globe program. I can highly recommend you to consider kind of research and doing research in science. As a career, that's also kind of my background. I think you're doing a great job, and it will be really nice to maybe meet you at one of the international meetings in the future. So for now, thank you very much and goodbye. And enjoy the rest of your conference.